Hello everyone and welcome to this week's lap guide tutorial for the GT3 Sprint Series at Brands Hatch. This lap will be done in reality, so let's have a look around. So with Brands, you've got a short run up to turn 1. Normally you cross the line, you're like up against the wall and you bring it over to the left hand side. But you want to be aiming for the 100 metre board here on the outside. As you can see, we go over a crest down into turn 1. So you have to kind of brake just as you get to the crest. As you'll see, we bring it over to the left hand side fully. 100 board here and the 50 board here. But you notice when you're driving, you can see like the car, you're going up the hill and down the hill into turn 1. You want to brake just to get to the crest. So 100 board now, on the crest on the bump. You want to be nice and progressive with the brake into it. Don't just jump on the brake, stab it to like 70% and expect the car to 1, carry speed into the corner and 2, rotate. You got to be pretty progressive with the brake into turn 1. So you see, we just slowly build it up, very light. 50 metre board now is probably where you're going to get your peak brake pressure on the way in. Do a downshift now as well. If you do a downshift a bit early, you do run the risk of the car just snapping on the way in. You want to use that downshift to almost rotate and force the car into turn 1 for you. And from here, you just trail brake it all the way in, as you can see. Still trail brake it all the way in. This lap I actually missed the inside here. You want to try and get your right wheels. You see how this darker line here? If I go to chase, for example, you'll see it. You can kind of get away with the car being on the right hand side. Some people you will see in the week actually use the inside curb. It's a real driver preference. It kind of all depends on how you've attacked turn 1, how much trail braking you've done. That will determine what you have to do here in the mid part of the corner. But the same concept will apply from here. You get on the power just before you see this dark patch on top of the curb. It's kind of a good reference. Before you get to this, start bringing the power in. As you can see, we commit to the power, run it all the way out. You get away with dipping your left wheels on in the gravel on the outside. Obviously, you'll get the off track if you're a little bit too far across and a bit too greedy. It's quite an easy and silly off track to get, especially in qualifying. But you can see you can get away with just your left side. I think it's if your right sides are a little bit further over, you get the ping. So the central point of the car here, and you should be absolutely fine. But from here, you'll see we've got a very, very short run and thinking zone up to the next corner of turn 2. Biggest thing you want to do here, aim for the 50 metre board on the outside, or if you've got the bridge visible, some people will have this in graphic sense. But normally, I aim for the 50 board here on the outside. And what you want to do is, you want to start braking just before that. But the biggest thing and the biggest tip for this corner, what catches people out, people try and attack this braking zone while going at the actual apex of turn 2 with a steering lock on and braking. And that's what causes a massive loss of lap time around here. Got to try and do the braking in a nice straight line initially. 50 metre board, down 1 gear. Start bringing it in, down a 2nd gear, down to 2nd now. And you can see we're just slowly bringing the car across. Releasing the brake all the way into the corner. Very key, you want to trail brake all the way in. If I go to chase again. You're going to get your right wheels just touching the curb. See how these rubber lines here? You just want to have your right hand side tyres just following this around. Be nice and tight. But the biggest thing is just you've got to trail brake it in, but don't just jump on the brakes at similar to turn 1 at 70%. Expect to be able to ram that all the way into the corner, stop the car and go. It's very, very important to just roll the minimum speed through here. You see we trail brake it all the way in, mid corner now. There's no real reference where you want to put the throttle in, unfortunately. But for me it's so now you're pretty much in the middle of the corner. Your right wheels are touching the white line up on the curb on the inside. Kind of got these markings here on the barrier on the armcos here. Can kind of use this as a reference. But the big thing is, you'll see the throttle input. I straight away go up to 90% throttle. And just hold it there. This just allows you to carry a lot of speed initially off the exit. And then as soon as you get the lock off, 100%. And what you should be able to do is run the car out, and you should just be using the red and white curbing. If I go chase again. If you're bouncing out here, you've normally just got on the throttle 100% a bit too early, and then you just forced the car into understeer and pushed it out wide. And the result of that is, if you've had a bit of understeer here and you've pushed the front, you kind of don't really have much grip into turn 3, and it's kind of really awkward on the way in. You also can get a weird snap on the outside here as well, which can just lose a lot of lap time, especially on lap 2, so just be a bit wary of that. But again, from here, short run to turn 3, down the hill. 50 metre boards, again, is your friends around this track. So you see the 50 board, but also just here where my cursor is, you'll notice you've got this gridding on the outside here onto turn 3 on the entry. What you're going to do is you're going to brake at the 50 board. A pretty decent brake, about 40% on the way in. But the biggest factor you want to do here, you can hear it there just ever so slightly. You want to have your right wheels up on this outside gridding. As soon as your right wheels are up on this outside gridding, turn in now. So you kind of you just literally open the corner up a little bit just to aid the apex speed of this next corner. From here, slow release the brake pressure. And you can either go around the curb, or you can do what I do on this lap, where I actually cut over into the grass. Kind of a driver preference, kind of go with what you think's best for you. This curb can cause the car to like a weird bounce and can push you a bit wide, and you put you a bit more like a risk zone of getting the off track on the outside here. Just play around with it, either way is fine. But for me, if you want to do this curb line, you want to be on power before you get to the curb. See, up on the curb, 75%, hold it. But 100%, use all the road on the exit. If I go to chase again, see, you'll get the off track if you cut across the grass here, and you get the off track if you cut across the grass here fully on the exit. So here, if you're about where my cursor is, that's where the off track is. So it's very, very fine margins here to gain a lot of lap time. If you underdrive this corner in qualifying, especially, you'll lose a lot of lap time. From here up to turn 4, again, lucky enough, you've got your 50-meter board on the outside here. But also, kind of a nice thing to notice, you see the line here starts to curve at this point. You go straight, then curves. Kind of a nice little reference point for braking. Into here, again, similar to turn 3, softish braking, about 40%, 50% at most. Trail brake it in, aiming for the middle of the track. You can go out wide here and then really arc it and be it off, but to me I find it always more consistent being a little bit narrow on the way in. Be nice and close to the curb on the inside, and then you can get the exit every time. You run the risk of especially being out here later in the race with marbles, of the car getting loose and losing time. And also in qualifying, the tighter line's a lot easier to do. The outside line here is very tricky with the tyre temps. But the main thing is trail brake it in. I do my downshift to third just before the end of the curbing here. You can do the downshift here, but you do run the risk of a downshift causing the car to over-rotate on the way in. Especially in the, I think the NSX does that in here. I think it gets quite loose in the way on a downshift, so just be a bit wary of this. But just trail brake it in, aim for the middle of the track. You see, it's nothing crazy with the steering lock here. I'm not like putting 90-degree steering in and holding and hoping it'll grip. Just slowly feed the steering in. You see, now we're off the brakes on the way into the corner, well before the white line. You want to bring in the power just before, you see like this curb here, like lips up, has like a bit of a bump in it. Aim for here, just before the white line. On the power, again, similar to turn 2, you kind of go up to like 80-90%, hold it, and then as soon as you get the lock off, 100%. So now, as soon as you get the lock off, 100%, run all the way out wide. Biggest thing here, if you're like bouncing, if you're hitting the curb at this point here, the car does lift up off the ground and you do lose a lot of lap time down into turn 5. So if you're bouncing out here, you've got on power too early and you've just committed to the exit too much. You want to be aiming for just this like little bit here. You see how the curb here goes a bit flat. Just use your right wheels on the curb, and from that should be absolutely fine. Now we have a little breather before the fast section comes up. Bring it over to the left hand side again. Lucky enough you got the 100 board and the 50 board. With T5 it's quite interesting because you can do it in two ways. You can go in quite soft and then really commit to the exit and power through, or you can go in really aggressive, stop it a bit more, but you gain a lot on the way in. On this lap for me, I kind of go in between. I just brake before the 50 board. Soft brake is the biggest thing is the braking. You've got to be nice and patient and nice and soft on the brakes into here. Try and carry as much speed as possible. Late downshift again for me, just before the barrier, just to get the car into the corner. And as soon as my right wheels are just touching the white line, my right front's on the white line next to the curb. From this point here, so very early, almost like in line with a Brands Hatch part here. From here, you should be committing to the exit. It's so important to get on the power as early as possible. Because you actually forget you can use a little bit of grass and run off on the outside here, and you don't get the off track. So you can actually commit to the exit a lot earlier than you think. So from here, 100%, use all the road. You see we land, use all the curb, and then our left wheels are just in the grass on the outside here. And you see, just follow it across. This doesn't get the off track. You get the off track if your left wheel is like past the curb. If it's like here, that's where the off track is. Because it actually thinks this is still part of the curbing up to this point. So this should be absolutely fine. Into the next section, 50-meter board, brake very early, very soft. Just trail brake it in, very important. You can go down one gear here. In the Audi, it wasn't ideal because you hit the limiter. Some cars will have the same thing. If you downshift one gear here, you'll hit the limiter. Then you have to shift mid-corner, and the bounce, when you shift, the car will bounce around a little bit, and it's just a bit horrible to drive. But again, driver preference and depend on what car you use. But for me, I normally try and keep it in the higher gear, so like 4th for example. Trail brake it in. Very, very important you cut over this. Like, if I go chase again, you'll see. We're fully over the inside here. Right wheels are in the grass. Trying to get the car as far over to the right hand side as possible on the inside. See here, a good example. Like, the cutting's here, the grass is here. Trying to just cut as much as possible. Just because this allows them to commit to the exit. You see 80, then 100% as soon as you get off the bumps. And we drive into the runoff. Your left wheel should just be next to the gravel here on the outside. And from here you can commit up the hill. Because the problem is if you have any sort of slip or you underdrive that corner, you have a bad exit, you lose a lot of time up the hill and you never really gain it back. If you can't really overdrive the next sector. So any sort of time loss on the way in, you kind of have to carry it through the rest of the lap. There's no place you'll gain it back. Be right up against the white line. Up into here. Brake just before the 50 board. Almost like where you get up to the white line. As soon as you get to the white line, brake, nice and soft again, same concept as previous. Trail brake the same amount on the way in. All the way in. As soon as you're fully on the inside of this curb here, now bring in the power. You see I'm on the power when I hit the actual curb itself. Bounce the power on the way through, you see up to about 90% and then 100% once the car settles. Because you've hit the curb at such a force, the car bounces around a little bit, and then once it settles, then 100%. If you're trying at 100% when you're bouncing, you run the risk of the actual car just ever so slightly drifting out wide. And if you drift out wide here, you run the risk of 1, getting the off track, 2, it's also very easy to actually spin the car when you dip a wheel here onto the inside. So it's a lot of practice, especially in qualifying. This corner is very, very, very rewarding in qualifying. If you nail this and get a huge run, you gain so much lap time and you'll be at the front. So you commit to the power, go chase again, right up against the white line. You can get away with actually dipping the wheel ever so slightly, but it's just, it's for safety reasons and just not getting off track and just stuff like that. But from here, straight away, you're going to be now aiming to bring the car back over to the right hand side. Here, braking again, just for the 50 board. A pretty heavy actual braking for this. You see, it's actually 50%, which is more than we've used for a lot of the corners so far. Just because you want to stop the car on the way in. 1 downshift, very, very early turning because you're aiming to almost get your wheels here where my cursor is, just at this grass point here. Turning quite early. On the power now already, you see you're starting to think about bringing it in to try and maximise the exit. But the reason I can do that is when you're driving, you probably notice that the car does this like weird second grip phase where it bounces or rotates in, and then the car becomes really stuck to the ground, so you can just commit to the exit. You see here, as soon as I get up to the power, up to about 70%, I can hold that, then 100% all the way through the corner, up on the exit, no problem. And this will be huge time. If you ever so slightly miss this on the way in, you understeer, you have to get off and off the throttle, and it's just, you lose a lot of time to the final corner because of it. So if I play it for you, see what I mean. Commit in, up on the curb, 100% on the exit. If you're bouncing on the curb too much or on the grass, you've committed to the power too early, or is how I would normally say you've done it. Biggest thing on the exit, just try and aim for this bit here. If you're using this part, you can see here it's quite lipped. That's what caused the car to bounce and jolt around. Especially on lap 2 in qualifying. On the second lap, this curb was really tricky with the bouncing, so just be a bit wary of that. Then from here, you've got a short run up to the final corner. Once again, your 50 metre ball is your friend. Soft brake. Turn in once you get to this runoff bit here. Bring it into the inside. Downshift once. You can do the downshift mid-corner for the exit. Roll it in the higher gear. Driver preference again. But the key thing is, try and bring it nice and close to the inside. And then you see how this line, almost straight into here, then goes back around the corner. Pretty early to the corner. Commit to the exit, 100% throttle. Drive it all the way out wide. You see, I'm not really trying to put more steering lock in. Biggest, crime people do in this final corner is they actually try and put more and more steering lock in on the exit, and then because of that, they understeer more wide. And if you do that, it makes turn 1 really, really poor the next lap. So just be nice and smooth. If you're in the grass on the outside, you've just gone the power too early. As always, you just carry a bit too much speed in. So just be a bit wary of that, but you want to be right up against the white line. See if I go chase now. Right up against the white line. Then from here, it's a nice short run to the line. But you want to make sure you bring the car straight back down. Hug the white line. And follow it all the way up to the line. up to the line. Make sure you're nice and close to the wall. Don't just, like, you'll see some people driving in the middle and the outside. Just make sure you do this, and then from here you bring it back over to the left hand side before the 100 board at turn 1. And that is a lap for Brands Hatch for week 2.